The ship broke apart like glass against the dark sky. A burning trail cut across the horizon as the small vessel screamed through the thin air of the planet. Inside, one human held on, his hands gripping the shaking controls, his eyes locked. On the broken world below, there was no time to pray, no time to send a message. Only the sound of alarms and the roar of fire. When the crash came, it was violent but not final. The man crawled out of the wreck, coughing in the red dust, his lungs pulling in air that felt dry and heavy. He had survived, but survival on this world was not a gift, it was a challenge. The land stretched endless. Dead rock and silent canyons. No birds, no rivers, no sound of life. Only the whisper of the wind moving through cracked stones. His name was Daniel, a lone explorer from Earth, sent on a mission to chart unknown systems. Now, he was marooned on a planet that looked like the grave of worlds. He looked at the wreck of his ship, sparks still flying, fire slowly dying. There was no signal, no communication. His radio burned into silence. His supplies were few, a broken pack with half a ration bar, a flask of water, and his will to live. The days passed strangely. The sky never seemed to change. A pale sun hung above, casting long shadows that seemed alive. Daniel walked the wasteland, searching for anything, a cave, a ruin, even bones. Something to prove life had ever been here, but the planet gave nothing. Only dust under his boots and silence in his ears. At night, the stars burned bright. Yet cold, Daniel sat by the wreck, staring at them, wondering if Earth still knew his name. His breath was weak, his stomach hollow. Each night he felt closer to death, and yet, there were moments, strange moments, when he felt eyes on him. Not the eyes of animals, not the gaze of machines, but something else. The feeling was sharp, like a whisper, just beyond the edge of hearing. On the fourth night, he woke to footsteps. He froze, his heart thundering inside his chest. The fire had died, the canyon was shadow, and yet the sound was clear. Someone was walking towards him, slow, steady, not hiding. Daniel grabbed a broken pipe from the wreck, raising it like a weapon. His voice broke the silence. "Who's there?" From the darkness, she stepped into the pale light, a figure tall, graceful, and not human. Her skin glowed faint blue under the dying firelight, smooth as polished stone. Her eyes were large, silver, filled with light that seemed alive. Her ears long and sharp. Her hair braided down her back like a river of black silk. She wore a flowing robe made of strange fabric, shimmering in the dust, and in her gaze was power, yet also sorrow. Daniel staggered back, his breath caught in his throat. The alien woman raised her hand, not in threat, but in command. Her voice came low, clear, and carried through the canyon, as if the stones themselves obeyed her. "You do not belong here, human," she said, "but now you are mine." The words struck him harder than the crash. He shook his head, gripping his pipe tighter. "Yours? What do you mean?" Her silver eyes locked on his, and for a moment, he felt like he was sinking, pulled into her. "Well, you are claimed," she whispered. "Your life is no longer your own. You will give it, so my people may live." Fear crawled through his bones, but so did curiosity. Who was she? Why was he claimed? The alien woman stepped closer, her hand brushing across his shoulder. Her touch was cold, yet not cruel. She looked at him as though he was both prisoner and savior. "I have waited for you," she said. "The stars brought you to me. Do not fight what is already written." Daniel's mind raced. Was this madness? Was this death's trick? Or was he standing before something ancient? Something that had been waiting in silence for centuries. He felt the weight of the planet, the endless deadland, and now the gaze of the only living being he had seen since the crash. Her presence filled the canyon, a mystery wrapped in danger. He was trapped, not only on the planet, but in her claim. The night closed around them. The fire gone, only her silver eyes shining in the dark. The human knew his story had just begun. But whether it was the beginning of salvation or destruction, he did not know. Asterisk, the human stood frozen, his breath sharp in the cold air. The alien woman's silver eyes locked on him. Holding a power he could not break, she moved with grace. Every step, silent, as if the sand bent to her will. Daniel gripped the broken pipe tighter. Yet part of him knew it was useless. "You are mine now," she repeated, her voice calm but filled with authority. Daniel's heart pounded, anger and fear mixing inside him. "I don't belong to anyone," he said, his voice cracking against the canyon walls. Her lips curved slightly, not a smile, but a knowing. "Look, you will," she answered, "because the stars chose you." She gestured, and the shadows around her seemed to shift. Daniel realized they were not alone. Faint figures moved in the distance, watching, silent, small shapes with glowing eyes. Children perhaps, or something stranger. The human felt surrounded, his escape. Crushed before it could begin, the woman stepped closer, her robe catching the dim light. She lifted her hand, touching his chest with fingers cool as stone. "You carry what we need," she whispered. "What I need." Daniel stumbled back, his voice shaking. "What are you talking about?" Her eyes softened, though her tone stayed sharp. "My people are dying. The last of us wait beneath the ground. We have no future, no hope, until you came." He shook his head, confusion swirling with dread. "I'm just a man," he said. "I can't save anyone." Her gaze hardened, her silver eyes burning brighter. "You are not just a man, you are human. Your blood carries strength, resilience, fire. It is what we lost long ago." Daniel's mind spun, the words crashing against the silence of the dead world. She was claiming him not as prey, not as a prisoner, but as something more. A key to survival, maybe even rebirth. Yet every part of him screamed to run. The woman turned, her voice echoing in the canyon. "Follow me," she commanded, "or die in the dust." Daniel hesitated, staring at the wasteland, the broken wreck of his ship, the empty horizon that promised only death. His choice was no choice at all. Reluctantly, he followed her, his steps heavy, his heart uncertain. They walked through narrow canyons, lit by pale starlight. Her movements were sure, as though she knew every stone, every shadow. Daniel followed, in silence, his eyes catching glimpses of the small figures trailing behind children with sharp ears and glowing eyes, watching him with a mix of fear and wonder. He felt like a stranger walking through a dream. At last, she stopped before a wall of rock. With a soft motion, she pressed her hand against it, and the stone shifted, opening like a living door. Warm light spilled out, golden and soft, unlike the cold stars above. Daniel's breath caught as she led him inside. The cavern stretched wide, filled with carved halls and glowing crystals. Strange plants grew in pots along the walls, their leaves shining faintly. Dozens of alien women moved quietly through the halls, tall, graceful, with eyes like the stars. Children clung to their robes, their faces curious but cautious as they looked at the human. There were no men, only women and young ones. The air carried a weight of sorrow, but also of survival. "This is what remains of my people," the alien woman said, her voice softer now. "We once ruled the skies of this world, but war and hunger destroyed us. Our men were lost, our numbers broken. We live hidden, waiting, praying." She turned to Daniel, her hand resting on her stomach as if holding more than hunger. "And now, you are here." The human felt the weight of their stares, dozens of eyes watching him, silent, judging, hoping. He shook his head, whispering, "Why me?" The woman's silver eyes softened, for the first time, not as a commander, but as someone burdened with grief. "Because the stars sent you," she said. "Because fate chose you for me." Daniel stepped back, his chest tight. "You don't even know me," he said, his voice trembling. She stepped forward, her words striking like arrows. "I don't need to know you. I know what you are. Human. That is enough. You will give me what my people need. You will give me life. You will give me offspring." The words fell heavy, echoing across the cavern. Daniel's breath froze, his mind fighting to grasp what she had declared. This was not just about survival, not just about escape. This was about his future, his freedom, his body, his blood. And yet, the weight of the silence told him the truth. These people had no other choice. He was their only chance. The alien woman's gaze never wavered. "You are mine now," she repeated, not as a threat, but as a vow. Around them, the children whispered, and the women bowed their heads, as if the future had already been written. Daniel's heart raced, fear and fate colliding. He realized his journey on this dead planet was no accident. It was the beginning of something larger, something he could not yet understand. The cavern lights flickered, shadows danced, and the alien woman stood tall before him. Her claim was final, her voice unshaken. "You will stay," she said, "and with you, my people will rise again." The human felt the walls closing in, the eyes burning into his soul. He wanted to deny her, to scream, to run, but deep inside, he knew the truth. This dead planet was not dead at all. It was alive with destiny, and he was now bound to it. Daniel followed the alien woman deeper into the glowing tunnels, his heart pounding with every step. The air was warmer here, filled with a faint sweet smell from the glowing plants that lined the walls. The floor was smooth stone, worn down by centuries of feet that had walked before him. Strange symbols carved into the walls glimmered faintly. As if alive with hidden power, the alien woman moved like she belonged to the stone itself, her robe trailing behind her like flowing shadow. The children and women who had followed from above now walked at a distance, whispering in voices too soft for Daniel to understand. Their glowing eyes never left him, as if he was both a stranger and a treasure. He wanted to speak, to demand answers, but something in the silence kept his mouth closed. Finally, they entered a massive chamber, so large it seemed to swallow the human whole. Great crystal pillars rose from the ground to the ceiling, their light pulsing gently like beating hearts. Water flowed here, clear streams trickling into carved pools, a sign of life hidden beneath the wasteland above. Daniel's chest tightened at the sight. It was proof this world was not as dead as it seemed. The alien woman raised her hand, and the chamber quieted, her voice carried with weight. Though she did not shout, "This is the heart of my people," she said, "the last sanctuary of our kind." Daniel's eyes moved across the room, seeing faces lined with sorrow and hope, all focused on him. He felt like a prisoner standing on trial, yet also like a king about to be crowned. "What do you want from me?" he asked, his voice low, almost lost in the echo of the chamber. The woman's silver eyes fixed on him, her gaze unshaken. "You have already been told," she said. "You are the seed of our survival." Her words made his chest burn with anger. "I am not a tool," he said, his voice rising. "I am not some answer to your problems." Murmurs rippled through the chamber, some women glaring at him, others bowing their heads as if in shame. But the alien woman stood tall, her voice cutting through the whispers. "You are more than a tool, human. You are a chance, a rare gift from the stars. Our world has waited, and now it has delivered you to us." She stepped closer, lowering her voice, though the whole chamber still seemed to hear. "Our men are gone, our blood thins. Soon we will fade into dust. I carry no illusions. Without you, there will be nothing left." Her hand rested against her own stomach, her face a mask of strength and sadness. "I will not let my people die," she whispered. "And you will." Not either. Daniel's throat tightened. He wanted to shout, to refuse, but the sight around him froze his words. The children stood closest, their glowing eyes wide, their small hands clutching at each other. They did not understand fully, yet they knew their lives depended on him. For a moment, he saw not aliens, not strangers, but children, just as human as any child from Earth, fragile, innocent, waiting for hope. Still, fear burned in him. "How can you be sure I can help?" he asked, his voice shaking. The alien woman's silver eyes locked onto his again. Because you breathe here, she said. Because the planet did not kill you. It chose you, just as it chose me. Her words left him cold, yet deep inside, something stirred, a small whisper, asking if she was right. Was his crash truly an accident, or was this world alive in ways he did not understand? He thought of the silence of the wasteland above, the long days of hopeless wandering, and how she had appeared exactly when his strength was gone. Coincidence, or destiny? The chamber shifted, a deep sound echoing through the stone walls. The crystals flickered, the streams rippled, and shadows danced across the ceiling. Daniel looked around, alarm tightening his chest. What was that? He asked, his grip tightening on the broken pipe still in his hand. The alien woman's expression darkened, her silver eyes narrowing. The planet remembers, she whispered. It never forgets. It watches. Before Daniel could ask more, a group of older women approached, their faces lined with age, their robes heavy with crystal beads. They bowed their heads before the alien woman, then turned their gaze to him. He is the one of them said, her voice like dry wind. The stars brought him. He must fulfill the bond. Daniel felt the weight of their judgment press on him like stone. He opened his mouth to protest, but the alien woman touched his arm gently, silencing him. You will see more, she said softly. Come, I will show you the truth of our people. She led him through another tunnel, the chamber fading behind them, the whispers of the crowd echoing like ghosts. The path sloped downward, deeper into the planet, the air growing cooler, the light dimmer. At last, they entered a smaller chamber, one filled with carvings across every wall. The carvings showed battles, cities in the sky, alien ships crossing the stars. Daniel's eyes widened as he saw images of tall figures like her standing side by side with humans. He stepped closer, his fingers brushing the stone. This is Earth's people, he whispered, recognizing familiar shapes of ancient human warriors carved into the walls. The alien woman stood behind him, her voice calm yet filled with weight. Our kinds were joined long ago. We shared blood. We shared destiny. You are not the first human here. Daniel's heart pounded. The carvings seemed to glow faintly under his touch. If her words were true, then his crash was no accident at all. The bond she spoke of was older than both of them, older than this broken planet. He turned to face her, fear and wonder battling in his eyes. What do you expect me to do? He asked, his voice trembling. Her silver eyes held his without mercy. Not expect, she whispered, but require. You will carry the future of my people, whether you wish it or not. It is already written. Daniel felt his knees weaken, the chambers spinning around him. He realized then that the planet was not dead, not forgotten. It was alive with memory, and he had just been tied to it forever. The days beneath the planet passed slowly, each one pressing heavier on Daniel's chest. He had been claimed, declared as the savior of a people he barely understood. Every step he took through the glowing tunnels reminded him he was watched, judged, and needed. The alien women carried on their work in silence, caring for the children, tending to the glowing plants, and whispering among themselves, but their eyes always turned to him, the outsider, the human who was supposed to give them a future. The alien woman who had claimed him never left his side. Her presence was like the shadow of the cavern walls, always near, always unshaken. At first he hated it, hated her claim over him, but when hunger came, it was her hands that gave him food, strange roots and fruits grown under the crystals. When thirst clawed his throat, it was her that guided him to the flowing streams hidden deep in the rock. When nightmares woke him, it was her voice, soft and calm, that stilled his racing heart. One evening, the cavern shook with a sudden roar. Dust fell from the ceiling, children screamed, and the women rushed to gather them. Daniel looked to the alien woman, panic flashing in his eyes. She stood firm, her silver gaze steady. They are coming closer, she whispered, though she gave no name to who or what they were. Without hesitation, She handed him a staff carved from crystal, its surface glowing faintly in the dark. "Stand with me," she said. "If you wish to live, you must fight beside me." Daniel gripped the staff, the weight solid in his hands. Fear burned through him, yet also a strange fire. The crash had taken everything, but in this moment, he was not only surviving, he was standing with her. The roar grew louder, and from a side tunnel burst creatures of the dark, long limbs, black shells, and jaws that split open with shrieks sharp enough to pierce the skull. The children cried out, the women pulled them back, and Daniel felt his heart freeze. The alien woman stepped forward, her robe swirling, her silver eyes blazing, like molten stars, with the motion of her hand. The crystal staff in her grip glowed brighter. She struck, the blow sending light cracking through the air, splitting one of the creatures in two. Daniel felt shock, awe, and terror, yet there was no time to think. Another creature lunged, its black claws reaching for his throat. Daniel swung the staff wildly, the crystal striking its head, a burst of light flashing, the creature falling in broken spasms. The cavern filled with roars, screams, and the clash of light against darkness, when, at last, the creatures retreated into the tunnels. Silence returned heavy and thick. Daniel stood, gasping, his chest burning, his arms shaking from the fight. Around him the children stared, their glowing eyes wide. The alien woman looked at him, her expression unreadable. "You fought," she said softly. "You chose to live." Daniel wanted to answer with anger, to say he had no choice. But the truth cut through him. He had chosen. He had swung, and he had killed to protect himself, and them. From that day, something shifted. The alien woman no longer called him only human. She began to speak his name, slowly, as if tasting it. "Daniel," she would say, and the way her voice carried, it made his chest tighten. In return, he asked her name. She spoke it softly, a name that rolled like silver over stone, Solara. The sound of it settled in his heart, firm and unshakable. Solara began to teach him their ways, how to use the crystal weapons, how to move silently in the tunnels, how to read the signs of the shifting stone. Daniel learned to recognize the glowing plants that could heal wounds and those that could poison. He learned to listen to the heartbeat of the planet, a soft hum that pulsed through the rock, though he did not believe at first. With time he began to feel it, a rhythm older than humanity itself. Days turned into nights, though the caverns had no true sun nor moon, only the endless glow of crystals. Together, Daniel and Solara hunted the shadow beasts. Together, they guided the children through the tunnels. Together they stood watch when the stones trembled, and slowly, trust began to bloom. Fragile, yet undeniable, Daniel still feared her claim, still fought against the idea of being bound to a destiny, not his own. But when he looked into her eyes, silver and endless, he saw not only command, but something deeper, loneliness, and the quiet hope of someone who had carried too much for too long. One night, as they sat near the glowing pools, Daniel finally spoke the words, pressing against his chest. "Why me?" he asked, his voice low. "Why not one of your own?" Solara's gaze softened, her hand brushing the water, sending ripples of light dancing across the cavern ceiling. "Because there are no more," she whispered. "Because you came when no one else could. Because the stars carried you to me." Daniel felt his throat tighten, the weight of her words pressing like stone on his heart. He wanted to argue, but the truth was plain. He was here, alive, when no one else was. As the days passed, the bond between them grew, not of chains, but of shared survival. They fought together, ate together, and in silence they began to understand each other without words. Daniel realized that, though he was trapped, he was no longer alone, and Solara, though she still claimed him, began to look at him not only as a savior, but as something more. Yet, in the shadows of the tunnels, deeper roars echoed. Something darker was stirring in the heart of the planet, and Daniel knew their fragile bond would soon be tested. The cavern was quiet after the fight, Yet Daniel could not rest. Each time he closed his eyes, he heard again the shrieks of the shadow beasts, the crunch of their claws against stone, the smell of their blood burning under crystal light. He sat awake by the glowing pool, gripping the staff Solara had given him. His heart beat heavy, not just from the battle, but from the strange weight of destiny pressing against him. Approached, her steps silent as always, her silver eyes catching the glow of the water. "You are restless," she said, her voice calm. Daniel nodded, his fingers tightening on the staff. "There is something wrong with this place," he whispered. "It's like the planet itself is waiting for something." Solara lowered herself beside him, her gaze moving to the rippling pool. "It is waiting," she said, her voice softer now. "It remembers, and soon it will awaken fully." Daniel turned to her, confusion flashing in his eyes. "Awaken? What do you mean?" Solara's lips pressed tight, her hands curling into fists on her lap. "There are enemies beneath us, older than the caves, older than my people. We sealed them away long ago, but the planet cannot hold them forever." Her voice trembled slightly, though her face stayed strong. "They destroyed our men. They burned our cities. They fed on our lives until nothing was left but us." Daniel's stomach twisted. "You mean those creatures we fought?" Solara shook her head slowly, her braids brushing against her robe. "No. The shadow beasts are only fragments, hunters born from the dark. The true enemy sleeps deeper, waiting. Their hunger is endless, and if they rise, no world will escape them." The silence that followed pressed heavy on Daniel's chest. He looked at her, at the sorrow etched in her eyes, and for the first time, he saw fear there too. Not just fear for herself, but for her people, for the children hiding in the caverns, for the fragile hope she carried. Daniel gripped the staff tighter, his voice steady, though his heart shook. "Then we fight them. We don't just hide, we fight." Solara studied him, her silver gaze sharp. "You are quick to speak of battle, human, but you do not know what you face." Daniel leaned forward, his jaw tight. "I faced death in the crash. I faced it in the wasteland. I faced it in the claws of those beasts. If I run now, then what was the point of surviving?" For a long moment, she said nothing. Then her hand rested lightly on his arm. "You speak like one of us," she whispered, and for the first time, there was warmth in her voice, but the peace of that night did not last. The next day the caverns trembled again, harder this time, the crystal lights flickering, dust falling like ash. Children cried out, women rushed to steady the walls, and Daniel felt the earth itself groaning under his feet. Solara's expression turned grim, her voice rising over the chaos. "They are waking." From the deepest tunnels came sounds unlike any Daniel had ever heard, a chorus of growls, roars, and whispers that seemed to echo inside his skull. The air grew cold, the streams rippled violently, and the crystals dimmed. The children clung to their mothers, their glowing eyes wide with terror. Daniel felt fear crawl through his spine, yet he forced his legs to move. He looked at Solara, his voice steady. "Show me what we're fighting." Solara led him to the lower tunnels, warriors among the women joining them, each holding crystal staffs glowing faintly. The tunnels narrowed, the light growing weaker until only the glow of their weapons lit the way. Daniel's breath came heavy, the air filled with the stench of rot and smoke. When the tunnel widened again, he saw carvings on the walls, not of her people, but of monstrous shapes, with long limbs and mouths filled with rows of teeth. The carvings were old, worn by time, yet the horror in them was alive. Solara's voice carried through the chamber. "These are the unborn, the ones who live on death itself. They devoured our skies. They will devour again if they rise." Her hand gripped her staff tightly, the crystal burning brighter. "We must be ready. There will be no escape if they break free." Daniel stepped closer to the wall, his fingers brushing the ancient carvings. For a moment, he felt something cold slip into his mind, a whisper that was not his own. He pulled his hand back sharply, his heart racing. "They're already awake," he said, his voice trembling. Solara looked at him sharply, her silver eyes narrowing. "You felt them?" she whispered. "Then it has begun." The ground shook again, stronger. Cracks splitting through the stone floor. From the darkness below came a low rumble, a sound like hunger itself. Solara turned to the others, her voice fierce. "Take the children to the high chambers. Guard the elders. Seal the passages." The women moved quickly, their robes flowing like shadows, their staffs lighting the way. Solara turned back to Daniel, her face firm. "You wished to fight. Now you will see if you were truly chosen." Daniel swallowed hard, his chest tight. Every instinct told him to run, to hide, to find a way out. But when he looked into her silver eyes, when he remembered the children's fearful faces, he knew he could not turn away. He raised the crystal staff, his voice low but firm. "Then, show me how to kill them." Solara nodded once, her expression unreadable. "Stay close to me, do not falter, and remember, the planet listens." The rumble grew louder, the cracks widening, shadows spilling out like smoke, and in the darkness, eyes began to open, glowing with hunger that promised no mercy. The enemy was no longer asleep. The dead planet was waking, and Daniel was standing at the edge of a war he never asked for. The tunnels shook like thunder rolling through stone. Dust rained from the ceiling. The crystals flickered as if afraid, and the whispers grew into screams inside Daniel's head. Solara stood tall, her silver eyes glowing fierce, her staff burning, bright with light that cut the shadows. Daniel gripped his own staff tightly, his knuckles white, his breath heavy. From the cracks in the stone floor rose shapes twisted and wrong, bodies long and thin, claws sharp as blades, faces stretched with mouths that opened too wide. Their eyes glowed red like burning coals, and when they shrieked, the sound rattled Daniel's bones. He felt fear clawing at him, but Solara's voice cut through it. "Steady and strong, stand firm, human. The unborn will not stop. They will not tire. We must." The first creature lunged, its claws slashing through the air. Daniel swung his staff, the crystal flaring as it struck, the blow shattering the creature's head in a burst of light. For a moment he stared, shocked, until another beast leaped at him from the side. Solara moved like flowing fire, her staff spinning, the creature bursting apart in sparks. Her voice rose over the shrieks. "Do not hesitate, Daniel. Strike if your life depends on it, because it does." The cavern erupted into chaos. Women warriors joining the fight, their crystal staffs blazing against the darkness. The children and elders were gone now, hidden far above, but their cries still echoed in Daniel's heart. He fought with desperation, each strike fueled not by training, but by raw will to survive. Every time he thought he would fall, Solara was there, her silver eyes catching his, steadying him, pulling him forward. The unborn came in waves, pouring through cracks, clawing up walls, shrieking with hunger. For every one they struck down, two more crawled from the dark. Daniel's arms burned, his chest heaved, sweat and dust covering his skin, but he did not stop. He could not. He remembered Earth, his crash, his hopeless days, wandering the wasteland. If he died here, all of it would mean nothing. So he fought harder, his voice breaking into a roar as he swung again and again. Solara's power was like lightning, her strikes precise, her movements unbroken. Yet Daniel could see the toll in her face, the strain in her steps. The warriors beside her began to fall. One by one dragged into the dark, their light fading. Daniel's heart twisted with rage. "Enough," he shouted, his staff cracking against the ground. The crystal bursting with light brighter than before. The shockwave tore through the cavern, blasting the unborn back, their shrieks echoing like thunder. The cavern fell into brief silence, the survivors panting, their weapons dimming. Solara looked at him, her chest rising and falling with exhaustion. "You are awakening," she whispered, her voice trembling. "The planet answers you." Daniel shook his head, his breath ragged. "No. I just don't want to see any more of your people die." before Solara could answer. The ground split open wider. From the chasm rose a beast larger than the rest, its body towering, its limbs like spears, its mouth stretching open in a scream that shook the stone itself. The unborn were not only soldiers, they had kings. And this one had awakened. The warriors froze, fear in their eyes. Solara stepped forward, her staff glowing like a star, her voice carrying strength. Do not falter, this is the heart of them. If we fall now, all is lost. Daniel's chest tightened, his body shaking with both fear and fury. He stepped beside her, his voice steady. Then we don't fall. The great beast lunged, its claws slicing stone like paper. Daniel rolled aside, the blow shaking the cavern, shards of rock flying. Solara struck its leg, the crystal burning through flesh, but the beast roared and swung back, sending her crashing against the wall. Solara, Daniel shouted, his heart surging with panic. He ran to her, pulling her up, her silver eyes blazing, though blood touched her lips. Do not stop, she whispered. The fight is not over. Daniel turned back, rage burning brighter than fear. He charged, his staff glowing stronger with every step. The beast swung down, its claws like blades, but Daniel leaped, striking with all his strength. The staff cracked against its head, light exploding across the cavern. The beast, shrieking as it stumbled. Solara joined him, her staff striking its chest, their lights combining into a burst so bright it blinded the chamber. When the light faded, the beast lay still, its body crumbling into ash. The cavern shook one final time before falling into silence. The unborn retreated, their shrieks fading into the dark tunnels. Daniel stood gasping, his body trembling, his staff dim in his hands. Solara leaned on her staff, her silver eyes fixed on him, filled with something new, not just command, not just hope, but pride. You stood, she whispered. You did not break. You fought as one of us. Daniel looked at her, his chest heavy. I fought because I had no choice, he said, his voice rough. But I also fought because I couldn't let you fall. Solara's lips parted, her gaze softening for the first time. Her voice came low, almost a breath. Then perhaps you truly were meant to be here. The cavern was broken, bodies of warriors lost, crystals dimmed, but they had survived. For now, the unborn had been pushed back. But Daniel knew in his heart this was not the end. It was only the beginning. And when Solara's hand touched his, firm and steady, he understood that the fight was no longer only hers, it was his too. The cavern was silent after the battle. The great beast had fallen, the unborn had retreated. But the air still carried their whispers, like distant thunder, waiting to return. Daniel stood in the broken chamber, his chest heaving, sweat and blood mixing on his skin, his hands shaking around the fading light of the staff. Solara leaned against the stone, her silver eyes fixed on him, not with command now, but with something deeper, something unspoken. The survivors gathered slowly, the women warriors carrying their wounded, the children rushing from hidden tunnels with cries of fear and relief. They surrounded Solara and Daniel, their faces filled with awe. For the first time, they did not look at him as an outsider, they looked at him as one of them. Solara raised her staff weakly, her voice carrying through the cavern, though it trembled with exhaustion. The human stands with us, she said. He fought as we fight. He bled as we bleed, and he did not fall. The warriors lowered their heads, their voices rising in agreement. Their whispers became a chant, Daniel's name rolling through the cavern like an echo of destiny. Daniel felt his chest tighten. He wanted to deny it, to shout that he had not chosen this, that he had only survived because there was no other choice. But when he looked into the faces of the children, when he saw the pride in Solara's eyes, the words died in his throat. Maybe choice had never been part of this. Maybe he had been brought here for a reason he could not yet understand. Later, when the dead had been honored and the wounded tended, Solara guided Daniel through the higher tunnels. They walked in silence, their footsteps echoing softly. The air cooler now, the crystals dim but calm. At last they reached a chamber that opened into the surface, a ledge overlooking the endless wasteland above. The sky burned red with the light of the pale sun, the horizon stretching without end. Daniel stepped forward, breathing in the dry air, feeling the wind against his face. For the first time since the crash, he did not see a dead world. He saw a world waiting. Solara stood beside him, her robe flowing in the wind, her eyes fixed on the horizon. "This planet is broken," she said softly, "but not dead, like us. It still breathes, it still remembers, it still waits for life." Her hand brushed lightly against her stomach, her voice quiet but filled with weight. "And with you, it will live again." Daniel turned sharply, his heart racing. "What do you mean?" he asked. Though he already felt the truth pressing against his chest. Solara looked at him, her silver eyes steady. "You are not only a warrior now, you are the future. You are bound to me, to my people, to this world." She stepped closer, her voice soft but unyielding. "You are mine, Daniel, not as a prisoner, but as the one chosen to carry us forward." The words shook him more than the battle had. He wanted to protest, to say he was only a man, not a savior, not a destiny. But when Solara's hand took his, firm and warm, the weight of her people behind her, the truth settled in his heart. He was no longer just a human lost on a dead planet. He was part of something greater. Days turned into weeks. Together they rebuilt the broken caverns, sealing the cracks, planting more glowing crops, teaching the children to fight and survive. Daniel trained beside the warriors, his body growing stronger, his spirit sharper. Solara never left his side, their bond growing not of chains, but of choice, of shared survival, of unspoken trust. One evening, as the crystals glowed softly around them, Solara stood before her people, Daniel at her side, her voice carried clear and strong. "This human is no longer outsider," she declared. "He is of us. He is the blood of our future. He is the bridge between what we were and what we will become." The cavern shook with voices rising in unity, the chant of Daniel's name echoing like a heartbeat through the stone. He felt pride swell inside him, not forced, not demanded, but earned. That night, alone by the glowing pools, Solara spoke softly. "The stars brought you to us," she said, her silver eyes reflecting the light. "But I think they brought me to you as well." Daniel looked at her, the fear of his crash, the loneliness of the wasteland, the terror of the battle all falling away in her gaze. "I thought I was trapped here," he whispered, his hand brushing hers. "But maybe I was found." Solara smiled faintly, the first true smile he had seen on her lips. "And maybe I was saved," she whispered back. Above them, the dead planet's sky stretched endless, but in its silence, there was no longer only despair, there was promise. Daniel understood then that destiny was not chains, but choices made when no path seemed open. He had chosen to fight, to protect, to stay, and in return, he had been claimed not as a prisoner, but as a partner in survival. The planet was not dead, the people were not broken, and he was no longer alone, on a world forgotten by the stars. Life had begun again, and it was his life, their life, bound together forever.